Hey everybody, welcome back to the Brett Luter Show. This is episode 133 in part two with an absolutely fascinating conversation with exorcist, pastor, and author Jess Parker. Let me see those bad boys right here. The hard copy version. I want to get me one of these. Demons and Sexual Bondages is the new book. We're going to get into that pretty deep in this segment. And this is the classic, To Hell with Sarah. Jess, welcome back to the show. Let's get this turned on you real quick here.
Ready?
There he is.
Sort
Kind
of blurry.
Got a blurry there.
Yeah, still blurry. What's going on here? Maybe a demon's tweaking with it. Wouldn't be the first time.
Right. Let's let it go back onto me here. Okay. Well, this is an interesting opportunity, I think, to talk about an experience that you had with a tech demon. There we go. By the name of Dispater.
Oh, okay.
Let's
This is a
since we're having little tech difficulties, let's just start with
That's
that.
a fun one.
Tell us about Dispater and what did Dispater, who is Dispater, and what did he do with your computer?
Okay, Dispater is a Roman god, the god Dis. That's where we get disappoint, disavowed, disillusionment.
Okay.
It was a Roman god Dis, and his full name was Dispater, but the Romans just called him Dis, and that's where we get all of our words that start with Dis. It's a disappoint, discourage, disillusion, dissipate, it's everything that's opposite of anything positive. But anyway, this is my experience. In 2007, I decided to do in my school, I decided to do a teaching on this demonic stronghold called discouragement. And so I started studying it. Courage, you don't have to study courage. Everyone knows courage. Go back to Greek and it still just means courage. I wanted to know what dis meant. So I started going back and doing a study on dis.
Okay.
And I discovered that he was a Roman god, a Roman demon. Uh, and so I'm doing this study, and all of a sudden, my printer at the time, it wasn't hooked up, through Bluetooth. My printer had I need to plug in my computer to my printer 20 years ago. Maybe some people didn't, but I did. So anyway, my printer is not on and it's not hooked to my computer. And all of a sudden it starts going ta 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 ta. And I look over at it and I thought, what on earth is going on? Well, I wonder what's coming out of that printer. I'm not printing anything. So I walk over there, and here's this 8 by 11 regular sheet of typing paper, and on it there's this figure of this demonic prince, and it says Lord of the Iron City, Dispater, Lord of the Iron City. And I thought, what on earth is going on? Then a second sheet comes out. He says, "You want to F with me?" He said, "You'll regret it." He said, "Don't mess with me." He said, "You're no match for me." He said, "You puny." He said, "You're no match for me." And he prints out this thing. But the thing about it was this sheet with the picture of himself was sort of a a dark bluish with a purple tint to it. And I thought, I've never seen type. You can type it out blue, you can type it out black, but I never seen this. So I set it in my printer and tried to copy it. It comes out black. Did it again, comes out black. So anyway, so this thing, I get this letter from him. He said, don't even. He said, don't you even teach that in your school. He said, you better not. You'll regret it. And so I just ignored him. Then he picks up not my computer, but my computer that my secretary's using, and he picks it up and he throws it against the wall about 10 foot and just crashes. I mean, it just it blew printer to pieces. It popped apart, you know. And I thought, dang you, you can't do that to me. And so anyway, everything started going wrong. I tried to print something, printer break down. Tried the printer would be working, computer would break down. And so here I have people flying in for my school. They're flying from out of state. They're flying in, and it's the day before. And normally a week before, I had 150, 200-page manual. I had it all finished. And we don't even have it printed out, you know. And I had to print out normally about 150 copies of it. That's about how many people was coming to the school. And so, but everything keeps breaking down. So it's the day before the school. And finally, we got the computer. See, the computer would just keep going to a total blue screen. And I was working with my secretary trying to get one copy. I'd already decided if I can get one copy off of our printer, I'm taking it into town. I don't care how much it costs me. I'll have a print shop in town print those manuals. So anyway, finally, it shows up on screen, and my secretary, Sarah, she says, "Oh, finally, Jess." I said, "Okay, listen, I got a lot of loose ends to tie up. I've got people flying in. I'm helping them find their motel rooms. I've got to go." So I ran out to my truck, and she calls me. Oh, I was frosted. And I answered the phone, and I said, "What? What?" And she said, "You need to come back." "I'm not coming back in there, Sarah. I'm not coming back in. Tell me what the problem is." And she said, "I can't tell you. You're just going to have to see it." So I walked back in, and my computer screen is just that ugly, faded out computer blue. And in big calligraphy, it just said, "Screw you." I was so discouraged. Now I'm
Wow.
teaching on discouraged. I was so discouraged. I just sat down in the chair and I said, "God, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to cancel this school. You told me to start this. I'm going to cancel this school. I'm going to go down and put on my visa enough money to pay all these people their airfare to send them back home." And I said, "And I'm finished. This school will never happen again." And while I was saying that, all of a sudden, boop, it comes back up on my screen. We were able to print the books. We got the books printed out. Now that happened in 2007, but it cost me $1,000 computer. That happened in 2007. And we got through that. Well, now fast forward to 2010. And I decided I'd forgot all about that, you know. And I thought, I'm going to teach on now. I'm not teaching in my school. I'm just going to teach it on a Thursday night, you know. And I'm going to do it on discouragement. Forgot about Dispater, you know. And by the way, Dispater, this is his MO in Roman mythology. Dispater means actually father. Pater means father.
Right.
And so he was the father of wealth, and he represented all the wealth that was in the earth. But a lot of these, but just like a lot of these uh, uh, Roman gods, they like changing. They didn't like who they were, so they just changed. So now he's the god of the underworld. He decided he wants to be the god of the underworld.
Okay.
So he travels on the river Acheron, and it's called the river of death, the river of discontentment, the river of discouragement. And he's like this ugly shark flying right underneath, swimming right underneath the souls of men. And he waits until discouraging things happen. And it says that he ferries the barge down into Hades. So he waits until a person is at their lowest, and he reaches up and he steals their breath out of them, and they become lifeless. They don't die, they become lifeless, and then he waits until they do die. So anyway, that was the whole thing that I found out about this demon Dispater. Now it's 2010, and I'm going to teach on discouragement again. And all of a sudden, like the printer,
Again.
only it's a different thing. Now he's just big old muscular demonic being with a axe, no, a hammer in his hand, and he's standing on a whole pile of skulls. And he said, "Wasn't once enough? You want to F with me again?" He said, "I'll tell you what." He said, "Don't mess with me because you're no match for me." So I just went on Facebook, just started Facebook. And all of a sudden start getting calls from people that said, "Jess, we know you didn't write this, but something's going on." And I said, "What?" And they said, you're spewing the vilest filth.
In the manual?
No, on
Oh,
Facebook.
okay, okay.
My Facebook
Oh, right.
account. And I said, "Really?" They said, yeah, your Facebook. Oh, it's putrid." I went on, it horrified me, Brett, the things that he was saying,
In your name.
calling people filthy
Yeah.
names. The next thing he did is he totally eliminated my friends except one. So now I only have one friend, Dispater Parker. It wasn't funny at the time. It is funny
Right.
looking back. And
That's precious.
yeah, so twice he really body slammed me. But yeah, he's
Have you learned your lesson?
no, I haven't. No,
That's good.
no. In fact, I told the Lord the next time he comes, I'm going to send him to hell. I'm going to send him to hell. I have to confess, I've had people break my nose, had people break my finger, my ribs. I've had people cripple me for a couple of weeks. I had a lesbian, really sweet lady, but she had been lesbianism, pumped iron her whole life, and she ripped my shoulder. I don't know what she did, but my shoulder, my arm was just dead for a couple of weeks. And I was really bummed because I was going to a family reunion and we all are into AR-15s. And I, I couldn't lift my AR. Oh, I was really bummed.
So just so we're clear, so while you're doing deliverance on people in your office, one-on-one or
Yeah,
small group of people,
yeah.
demons are manifesting
Oh, yeah.
and then attacking you through taking control of the people's bodies.
Oh, absolutely. I would see, I weigh 180 pounds now. I weighed 216 pounds at the time, and I had an East Indian man who's a good friend of mine now, but he only weighed about 130 pounds. Only stood about 5'7", weighed about 130 pounds, very slender. He picked that demon through him, picked me up, and slammed me right there on my hip. I don't know what he did, but he slammed me on, picked me up, slammed me over my desk on my hip, and it clipped my hip right there. And I don't know if it severed a nerve. I don't know if it maimed one of my legs. I don't know what it did, but I drugged this leg for about 2 weeks, and I didn't know if I was going to be permanently lame, crippled. So, but yeah, I've had demons do all kinds of things to me.
That's absolutely just mind-blowing. Um, so we don't know what happened with the blurriness to start this segment, right? But
it doesn't surprise me.
it wouldn't surprise you, right? Because
Yeah.
of the stuff that you've been through. I've been
Yeah,
through computer
yeah,
stuff too.
yeah,
I told you about Windows 11 eating my book,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I prayed against the Spader at that time just because I'd heard your lecture.
Good
So
idea.
I figured that was the odds-on bet. It was stemmed from him somewhere, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so does the Spader have anything to do with sexual bondages?
I don't think so.
Okay, so you can't be discouraged about sex somehow in a marriage or
No,
disappointed about sex and
maybe, but I've never attributed the work of Dispater in that book, Sexual Bondages.
okay. So one of the things I've seen you do and talk about is when a demon manifests in a person while you're doing deliverance on them,
Uh-huh.
There's two schools of thought. You just manifest, you cast it out. We'll talk about casting or binding and the difference. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
But then what I've seen you talk about is that you don't just cast them out right away. You talk to them and pump them for information.
Yeah. Yeah.
It seems to be two schools of
Yeah.
thought. Some people say you don't do that, don't work with the
Uh-huh.
demon at all.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, we got an opportunity here. Let's take advantage of it and see what information we can find out.
Well, those people that say don't talk to a demon are concerned about you becoming deceived. And demons do deceive people. But I talk to a demon the same way a lawyer talks to a person on a witness stand. I ask them a question. They see if Jesus commanded the demon that came out, the man in the tombs, he commanded the demon to tell him his name. Now, a lot of people say you can't trust a demon because they'll lie. I know they lie to you.
Right.
But Jesus commanded that demon to tell the truth and tell him his name. Well, if you and I have the authority, and then we have been given the authority to trample serpents and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy, if we have the authority to command them to leave, we have the authority to command them to tell us the truth. Now, I've had a demon lie to me half a dozen times, and I just say, "You're lying. I want to know the truth. You're lying. I want to know the truth." And I pound him and pound him the same way a lawyer does. And finally, they have to give up and tell me the truth. So, but I do understand people's caution about being deceived by a demon. So, anyway.
I think, and I've learned this from you, demons like to brag.
Hmm.
So I feel like if you're gonna, just like dealing with a person too, if they're bragging, there's, I think, more of an odds are they're telling the truth.
Yeah.
Is that true for a demon as well?
Yes. In fact, I like to taunt them. I
To
like
make
to
them brag?
taunt them
Right.
to make them brag.
They seem to be, and I've heard many of your stories, right? They seem to be childlike in that way,
Yeah.
where you can taunt them and then get them to react in a predictable way.
Exactly, because Satan's sin in heaven was the sin of pride. Isaiah and Ezekiel talks about that his sin was the sin of pride. And because of that, and because his followers are the same, they have a problem with pride. They love to brag, they love to gloat, and you taunt them a little bit. And first of all, they don't want to talk to you because I've had a demon tell me if I talk to you, if I tell you my name, it gives you power over me. But if you taunt them and tell them they're nothing but a piece of garbage, they tell you they're a ruler, and you say you're nothing but a low law, the bottom feeder. You're nothing, and it irritates them.
Yeah, you get their goat when you do that.
And so they say, "How dare you? I'm a ruler with 4,000 people, 4,000 demons under me." And you taunt them until they start bragging.
That's so funny. That's so funny. It's not funny really, but when you actually see this stuff in action, it's amazing how really simple this is. Most people just won't believe it. Again, we talked about in the first segment, the premise is wrong. People just don't think it's real to begin with.
That you're
But once
right.
you understand the reality that there's this enemy that's interdimensional, that has this history, and they hate us, then if you come forward off that, everything makes sense.
And they're a living being, Brett, just like you and I. They have emotions, they have feelings. You can intimidate them, you can frighten them. I've told a demon, "You leave now, and I won't send you to hell." They're gone like a flash. They're out of there because I've already told them I'm going to execute judgment on them, send them to chamber. They don't want to go to chamber. They want a chance to torment someone else. And I've told them, I'll lift that thing. I won't send you a chamber if you leave now. Boom, they're gone so quick. So they're fearful. They're proud. They're fearful. They have emotions just like you and I. They're a living being.
Okay,
So
fascinating. Okay, so but this brings up another point. The difference between binding a demon and casting it out. And then you just gave me a third category. You're not, you can like negotiate. I won't cast you to hell.
hmm.
Just leave. And
Yeah.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, demons are supposedly cursed to wander the earth until
Yeah.
the end times. So why, so what what's the difference of sending them to hell versus sending them back out where God has them anyway, wandering the earth?
Well, they don't wander forever. What the Bible says in Matthew 12 and 43, it says, when a demon goes out of a person, it wanders in lonely places looking for rest and finding none. It says, I'll go back to my house where I came from. And going back, it finds it clean, swept, and empty, which means the person hasn't, Christ isn't living there. Person's an unbeliever. I'll go back to my house where I came from. Well, now you frightened them. So they go get 7 other demons, more wicked, more powerful than them, and they all go live there. And Jesus said the last state of the man is worse than the first.
It's like on earth as a bully, maybe you stand up for yourself and blacken the eye of a bully, let's say, and he'll go back
Uh,
and get his friends because his ego's hurt, and then
exactly.
come back with his friends and say, "Oh, you think you're tough now? Deal with all of us," kind of thing.
Exactly. Chris. See, some of the demons, see, Jesus' ministry covered a strip of land about 50 foot wide and about 100 foot long, traveling back and forth between North and Galilee, back down to Jerusalem. And everywhere he went, he cast out demons. The disciples, after he left, the area that they covered, James, the Apostle James, did make it to India, but most of it was right around Asia. So there are millions, billions of demons that have never heard a human voice give them a command. I've had a demon say, how dare you speak to me, mortal? I'm so far above you, don't even talk to me. I won't even answer you. So I'm going to do more than talk to you. I'm going to send you to hell. But see, they're shocked. They don't think that you or I have the authority, and they think we're stupid, Brett. Like I've had a demon say, you'll give this up. I'll hang on until the end of this session and I'll never see you again. And so when you first confront a demon because they've never heard a human voice, confront them, they go into some of them go into shock. Some of them are so outraged that you would even speak to them because they look at us like pieces of garbage. And when we stand up to them, it sort of shocks them. And so, yeah, but they're beings just like you and I, and they have emotions, they have feelings, and so anyway. But I love taunting them. I love shocking them until they finally tell me what I want to know.
You know, it seems like they lack experience with us, some of them.
Oh yeah, oh
And
yeah.
that's
They've never heard a human voice tell
that's
them to go.
interesting to just understand that dynamic.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
and so God gives us, Luke 10 and 19. I just cited the scripture.
Yes,
Kudos for me. Uh, God gives us the authority to trample serpents and scorpions.
that's
Two
right.
different categories of demons,
Yeah,
serpents and scorpions.
yeah.
Serpents are is that the bodily ones?
Well,
And the
Dave does have an opinion that one of them attacks the soul and one attacks the body. I've never thought that through, but there's probably some merit to it.
okay.
He listed, although I'll tell you an experience that I had. I once asked an angel why I had a bad memory, and the angel told me, he said, well, there's a couple of reasons. And I said, well, what is it? And he said, well, one, he said, have you ever heard of rapid eye movement? And I said, no. And he said, that's where a person sleeps for about 55 minutes and then they dream for about 5 minutes. And when they're dreaming, their eyes are moving. And he said, the reason that you don't act out your dreams is because of the fact that two chemicals are released into your body that paralyzes you. And when you come to, when you wake up, there is one chemical in your body that counteracts the paralysis, and you're able to move again. He said that's the reason that's keeps people keeps people from playing out their dreams. He said because they're paralyzed, they don't.
Keeps their physical body
Yeah,
from
yeah,
doing it while
yeah.
they're in an altered state,
Right.
getting up like sleepwalking or something.
Right. But back to the original thing, I asked him why I have such a bad memory. He said, well, because you've always prided yourself that you live on 4 hours of sleep a night, and that's not enough. Because during that rapid eye movement, that's when the brain defrags itself. And he said that when the brain pulls up everything you've saw, tasted, felt, sensed, heard, and it pulls it all up out of your conscious mind, and it categorizes it, and it puts in your subconscious mind some. I don't care if I ever remember that again. I have to remember this. I want this for future reference. And he said that defragging process, he said, you never allow your brain to defrag itself. You're always behind because you only sleep 4 hours a night. And he said, you need 6, 7 hours of cycles to defrag yourself. And I said, okay, well, what else? I said, I'm going to do what you say. I'm going to try to start sleeping 6, 7 hours a night. And I did from then on. But then he said, well, you have a demon. And I said, oh, okay. And I said,
You have a demon.
yeah. He said, you have a demon. And he said, and I said, well, what is it? He said, it's a bird. And I said, a bird, the Bible says we trample serpents and scorpions. And he said, demons are every kind of, they're insects. They're beasts, they're animal, they're beautiful women, they're ugly men, handsome men. He said, they come in every shape and form that you can imagine. And I said, okay, so it's a bird. I said, well, what's its name? And he said, conceptual short-term memory loss. And I started laughing.
Wow.
Said, what kind of a self-respecting demon would have a name like, and when I laughed, well, I thought I said something funny. I never heard him laugh or anything. He never laughed along with me, but he just sat there until I said, okay, so he's a bird. I said, well, I'm going to call him a vulture. And I said, and I'm going to send him to hell. So I prayed against this thing for quite a while, maybe I want to say maybe even a month. And one day I asked the angel, I said, hey, have I sent him to hell? And he said, no. I was disappointed. I said, really? I said, you haven't, I didn't send him. I thought, I said, well, I said, have I accomplished anything? He said, you drove him out of your sphere. And I said, what does that mean? He said exactly what I said. You drove him out of your sphere. Well, I have a better memory now at 77 years. I'm 77 today, and I have a better memory now than I did when I was 50 years old. But I paid attention to what he said, and I told him, I said, I'm going to keep rebuking. I'm going to call this bird a vulture. And so I rebuke the vulture on a regular basis, but I'm telling you, my memory is better than it was 20 years ago, Brad.
Super interesting. Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
77 years young. You're a tweenager. You're about halfway through.
I don't know what I am, but I still feel pretty good for 77.
So in your book, speaking of names, I mean, that's a crazy name of a demon that you just said.
Short-term memory loss. Who would have believed
that's
it?
a specific. There's the Beelzebubs or the Azazels, right? There's that kind of tradition of naming demons, and then there's their vice or what their job or assignment is the name of the demon.
Exactly. Some of them do have a personal name, but most of them, you're right, it's their job description. But when he told me conceptual short-term memory loss, I laughed.
That's as funny as you can get in this kind of a subject, right?
It is.
So in the book, in Demons and Sexual Bondages, Don't Look.
Yeah.
Is another demon.
Yeah.
What's that role? What's his?
Okay, well, for the average Christian man, like I said, we have a level of virtue. Now, some sear their conscience and they lower that level of virtue a long ways, and all you got to do is look and see pastors that are in the news that have fallen, that have following of thousands of people. But there is a level of virtue that many, many Christian men do. So that means that they won't do pornography. They won't do masturbation. They don't fantasize about sleeping with someone else's wife. But there is a very cunning, subtle demon called just look. And most Christian men will look at a pretty lady. I would. And the reason I know this firsthand is because invariably, Brett, if there was an attractive woman in my peripheral vision, I see that attractive woman and I'd look at her. I just looked. I never fantasized or anything, thought about taking her to bed or anything like that, or cheating on my wife. but I would look at a pretty.
Right.
Well, I didn't think it was a demon, and most Christian men don't think it's a demon. They just think all I wanted to do is look at a pretty girl.
Right.
Well, excuse me, my throat's a little dry here. I, I was in a red light one day, and I'm sitting there at the red light, and all of a sudden, invariably, I knew it was a demon. It was a demon that told me. I knew there was an attractive woman over here on my side walking across, and I just turned around and looked, and the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, that's a demon by the name of Just Look. And I almost laughed, Brad. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, command him to leave. I started rebuking while I'm at that red light, and I started coughing, and I thought, oh, that is wild. That's how I learned that there's a demon called Just Look. He knows that you and I are not going to fantasize about sleeping with someone else's wife, or you and I are not going to indulge in pornography, internet pornography, or anything. But we'll look at a pretty lady, and so he gets us that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Go work out at the gym
Yeah.
and you get that one tested for sure.
Yeah, I have a friend. He calls he calls he calls Jim's flesh pots. He said every time you go there, Jess, he said you might as well be looking at pornography. He said some of the women there, not all of them, but some of the women, he said they're hardly dressed at all, you
That's
know.
right.
So yeah,
It's yeah, everything's a test, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I had a relationship recently where everything seemed to be going good, and then I took this lady to Deliverance. You met
Uh-huh.
her,
Yes.
and later that night, everything seems to be great, right? And then she starts telling me that I was making weird facial expressions at her. Okay. And so that reminds me of in your book, you talk about tumbler spirits that
Yeah.
twist your words or maybe facial expressions. Can you talk about that for just a second?
Yes. Yes. I was casting out a demon once. And I said, what's your name? He said, I'm a tumbler. And I said, well, what's that? And he said, my father is the prince of the power of the air. And I said, so what? What does that mean to me? He said, he can tumble words, and I'm a tumbler. And I said, what do you mean? He said, my master can take words that leaves a person's mouth because he's the prince of the powers of the air and he controls airwaves. And he can take and tumble words, and when they enter the person's ear, they then sound the same as when they left the man's mouth. That blew me away. I said, really? He said, oh, yeah. He said, yeah, tumblers. He said, I'm a tumbler. He said, I tweak with words. I make people hear things that it wasn't spoken. Hmm. So, but I think he got in trouble revealing that information because there was probably 2 months later, there's a couple that I knew about my age, this was 20 years ago. So there's about in their 50s. And I talked to their son and daughter who were early teens, and they said, living in our house is like living in a war zone. My mother and father are at each other all the time. And well, I just found out about tumblers. And I write about that in my book. He probably gotten some deep kimchi. But so now this couple, so um, this woman, they sit down in my office and I'm trying to sort out. I was already casting demons out, but they've been friends a long time, trying to help them sort out things. And this woman says to her husband, you said such and such. And he turned to her and he said, I hope God strikes me dead if I said that to you. I would never say that to you. And she said, you are a liar.
Right.
I know what I heard. Well, I had this knowledge of tumblers, and I just found out about it a couple of months before, a month before. I don't remember exact times. Anyway, so I said, and they get into this, and I say, excuse me, stop, 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 stop. And I turned to this woman and I said, there's not a doubt in my mind that you heard that. Then I turned to him, there's not a doubt in my mind that you didn't say that. Let me tell you about a class of demons that call themselves tumblers. And I sat down and I proceeded to explain to them how this demon told me because Satan is the prince of the powers of the air, he can control airwaves and sounds coming out travel on airwaves. And I said, and this demon called Tumbler told me what he did. He makes people hear things that the person didn't say. And they were both a deer in the headlights. They were looking at each other thinking, could that be real? I said, could you just allow me to pray for you for a while? And I started casting, demons started leaving both of them. I mean, just bailing, both of them. Well, I talked to their daughter. I think she was 20 or 21. And she said, she said, me and my brother lived in a house where it was just like we're living in a war zone. Now it's disgusting. They're like newlyweds. And I know, and that was 20 years ago, and I still see them, and they're still great. In fact, they wanted to take me out to dinner because I healed their marriage. I didn't heal their marriage. God healed their
God,
marriage.
right? Glory to God.
Anyway, but yeah, tumblers, they can do those kind of things, Brett.
Looking back on my life, I have to think that tumblers have been intricately involved in my
Yeah.
relationships with women. And so we're back to your book, Demons and Sexual Bondages. So
Well, this gal, I remember that's a beautiful girl you was
yeah,
with.
yeah, she was.
And I so all of a sudden your face started morphing, huh?
She was brave enough to come to deliverance, right? So I was like, yes, Jesus, maybe this is the one, right?
Yeah.
And so we were oftentimes after deliverance, I'm tired and I want to go eat. So
Hmm.
we went to Denny's back up in Chico, and then it just started to spiral downhill after that. And I couldn't help but think that she was I call it activity when someone
Yeah.
is having influence like that. They got activity. And so, it just is what it is. And it almost makes me ask the question, am I glad that I can see this or no? Or would I be happier if I was ignorant to the whole thing, right?
Well, Solomon said ignorance is bliss.
Right, exactly. So, okay. So we're wrapping it up here. Thank you again for your time and for having me into your house. It's your birthday.
Nah,
God bless you and Kathy for allowing me here. I appreciate that very much. I've been wanting to do this interview for over a year, so
I
thank you
know.
so much.
I felt guilty, Brett. You
No,
put
no,
so much effort, time and effort trying to fix my computer where I could open up Zoom, but like it doesn't surprise me because demons, they're into electronics.
after that Dispater story, it's like I
Yeah.
don't discount any possibility
Yeah.
along those lines. So, but you have a podcast as well.
Yes.
It's on Rumble.
And YouTube.
Rumble, and what's it called?
In Your Face Demon.
In Your Face Demons.
Yeah,
Okay.
with Jesse Parker.
And so I've seen a couple recent episodes of Demons and Blindness,
Yeah.
Vampire Demons.
Yes.
What name some of the more recent episodes?
Uh, Recent Demons and Children, Demons who inhabit houses. Um, um, oh man, my mind goes blank.
That's okay. You got it.
Some of the earlier ones I talk about Cambodian principalities that tried to drag two of my team members out the eighth floor of a high rise in Cambodia, and and then I also talk about Shiva, the satanic prince of the Hindus.
Okay.
I talk about possessor from hell. Um,
All fascinating subjects, but I just want people to know Rumble and what's the other one?
YouTube.
YouTube, Rumble and YouTube. Okay.
Yeah.
In Your Face Demons is the podcast.
Yes.
Can you please hold up your books again
Yes.
for our audience? Demons and Sexual Bondages and To Hell with Sarah. Both books, ladies and gentlemen, are if you're into studying about the forces that affect this world and could affect relationships, these two books are gonna rock your world, right?
Thank you for having me, Brett, and thank you for listening in. And blessings in Christ.
Yes, happy birthday to you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was absolutely awesome. We're going to have Jess on at some other point because he just scratched the tip of the iceberg with some of the stories. He just started to get into stories with Thailand, and I've heard some of those stories, and that's just, we're talking another episode. So,
Yeah.
all right, stay tuned. In Your Face Demons on Rumble and YouTube. Thank you, everybody.